وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: أولئك هم الوارثون الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعظم الله أجوركم جميعا. May Allah increase your reward and your patience, and may the level in paradise for you increase for all the majalis that you have been participating in. Because if it wasn't for the people that participate in the majalis would not exist. These congregations are based on your participation, and you are an integral part of this. And for this you will not see its fruits only in the hereafter, but you will see its fruits in this world before the hereafter. And inshallah, Allah rewards you greatly for your participation. We went over the characteristics where Allah Azza wa Jal says قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, that when He speaks about success of this world and the hereafter, He says the mu'minun, the believers, are the successful ones. And He describes the characteristics of the believer, who this mu'min is. At the very end, the seal of these success, He seals it off with a term where He says أولئك هم الوارثون. أولئك هم الوارثون. When we look at the word warith, it is someone that takes something that was with someone before them, or inherits something of someone else. For example, when you read زيارة وارث, زيارة الحسين, السلام عليك يا وارث آدم, that Al-Hussein alayhi salam yarithu Adam, that Imam Hussein alayhi salam inherits from Adam. Then it goes on, you say, all right, if we want to look at it in the sense that he's inherited from his property, you say, yes, Adam is his forefather. But then it gets to the point where he becomes the warith of who? Of Ishaq. Ishaq is his uncle, great uncle. And then Yaqub, which becomes his cousin. And then all these people in other ziyarat that he has inherited from, even people like Isa ibn Maryam, who is far as a distant relative. So then we understand from this that he has inherited what? Something other than that is tangible, and as you would inherit in a normal inheritance. In normal inheritance, you inherit sometimes the wealth of your fathers, and sometimes the oldest child inherits the burdens of their father. So there is some sort of inheritance. In the case of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he's inherited this ahd, this amani, this trust that Allah has given of carrying the faith and being Allah's representative on the earth, being Allah's proof to mankind. However, when we read about the mu'minun in this surah, it says أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسِ. Now you start to think here, if they inherit Al-Firdaus, before we understand what Al-Firdaus is, we know Al-Firdaus has to do with paradise, has to do with heaven. But when I read in the Quran, there are several verses in the surah that our dear brother just read in the Quran, in Surah Al-Rahman. There's two verses with relation to the wives in paradise. It says, فِيهِنَّ قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. So when it speaks about the women in paradise that limit their glances, it mentions that they have not been touched before by man or jinn. And in the same surah, Surah Al-Rahman, it says, حُورٌ مَقْصُورَاتٌ فِي الْخِيَامِ. And then فَبِأَيِّ أَلَّهِ between that. But then it says, لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. Once again, they have not been touched. Then in a narration, which we hear so often, in some cases, this narration is narrated عن الأئمة عليهم السلام. In other cases, it's been narrated as a hadith Qudsi. It says about paradise, لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر. لا عين رأت. No one has seen this paradise. No one has heard of what this paradise is. And it's nothing that you could even imagine. If I asked you right now to imagine what paradise is, and imagine, you think of, honestly, you sometimes look at all these beautiful landscapes in the world, even just here while you're in Australia, the beauty of the landscapes that you go to. If you write any area that you see the beauty, waterfalls, beaches, mountainous ranges, everything, and you think of all the beauty you can imagine, and the best living lifestyle, when you see people's palaces and that, you cannot fathom and imagine what paradise is. Yet Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks here, He says, الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ. They inherit this. So how do they inherit this when it's not anybody else's? It hasn't been handed down. It is explained in a tradition, because they asked Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. There were people around the A'immah that used to waste their time. People would come and ask stupid questions. But then you would have some people that honestly, we are indebted to these people. The uqala that were around the A'immah that asked them the proper questions. We are indebted to the people that actually asked the Imams the questions we needed to know. Because sometimes people would ask a question and they wouldn't reply. One man came up to one of the khulafa and said to him, he said, there's a verse in the Quran that says fakihatun wa abba. You know, fakiha, everyone knows what that is. It's fruit. He said, what's abba? And so he turns and looks at him and says, don't you know we are not? إنما نهينا عن التكليف. We don't have to do this. We're not a duty to give you this answer. He says, go away. There's no point in you knowing what this is. The funny part about it, if you read the next verse, it gives you answer. It says, متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم. متاعا لكم الفاكهة ولأنعامكم الأبا. That is, it's the herb, the foliage and the plants. That's what it is. In Arabic, they would have come to the conclusion of what it is before they get the hadith. So sometimes they would ask, the wrong person received the wrong answer. When they ask Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, how is it that these people inherit a paradise that hasn't been used before? And then they say, ما منكم من أحد إلا وله منزلان. That every single one of you has two abodes. Every single individual here. You have an abode in paradise, and you have an abode in the fire of hell. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah, nastajiru billah from this, you know. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to keep us aloof from this, to keep us away from this. He says, منزل في الجنة ومنزل في النار. He says, فإن مات ودخل النار ورث أهل الجنة منزله. That if someone dies and is placed in the fire of hell, the inhabitants of paradise will inherit his home, will inherit his abode. Even when we read in the du'as in Shahr Ramadan, we say that term, you hear it all the time, وَلَا تَسْتَبْدِلْ بِي غَيْرِ. Because at any point you could be on the path of righteousness, one thing turns you away from this path. One very good example of this is Al-Zubair ibn al-Awwam. Al-Zubair, if you were to look at the first half of his life, you would say, Ya laytana kunna ma'ahu. We wish we were with this man. Who is this man that in Uhud, when everyone fled from Rasulullah and left Rasulullah, those that went to get the ghanaim, the booty, the war booty, and those that fled, they say one of them fled. If you read Tariq, in the Tariq of what happened, the Baladhuri in his Tariq, he writes that, and he names the first three, he says that they ran. He actually mentions this by their name. He says they all ran. They fled from the war. Where was Zubair? Do you know where was Zubair in Uhud? He was standing, fighting and defending Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine that as an accolade, as an achievement. He stood and defended Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam when no one was there. Everyone left, only a few remained. He was there when the house of Fatima was attacked, and he stood with Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and was not swayed to the dark side. He stayed with Amir al-Mu'mineen. So you imagine, look, who is this man that kept all this? Then that moment came. وَلَا تَسْتَبْدِلْ بِي غَيْرِ. See, you get tests throughout your life. One test, two tests. And if you have any pride within yourself, and if you have any haughtiness or self-conceit and confidence that أَنِ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنِّةِ, and you know, there's some people, honestly, when you tell them we are nothing, and we are lucky to if we are accepted by Allah Azza wa Jal. Some people think, hold on, I pray Salat al-Layl. Why is he saying that for? I do a lot. I wake up in the middle of the night. Some people have this thing within themselves. They actually feel that there's something. And this is the first part of where you fall flat on your face. This is how as long as the moment you look at the righteous people don't think of their actions. This is why we say, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha qaleel. Because it is. If you think these 10 nights that you spent in Aza is something great, we have tama' and rahmat Allah. This is all we have. If you think your actions are valuable, then you need to understand, inshallah, and tomorrow night our discussion will revolve around one that worshipped a lot. And that is for tomorrow night. But let's stick to where we are right now. And he turned. So Zubair, at this very point, where after the second Khalif left this world and appointed the committee of 6. And he was in the committee of 6, and he saw himself appointed to vote between him and one of the 6 that was there was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So he thought, you know what, I'm on the level of Ali. See, this ghurur comes in. When you should know yourself, you should know your position. You should know that the dahr, the time, the zaman that you are in, and all the injustice in the world led for someone. And you look at the ulama today. You know, sometimes, honestly, I was in Lebanon and I saw this alim, really pious, righteous man, and he was neglected. This is what happens. If you're too righteous, people walk away from you. If you don't sing for the crowds, and if you don't sing for the puppet master that pays you, you're not really going to be recognized. This is the way the world is. And this person was neglected. And this is what happens. You get neglected. No one looks at you. So Amir al-Mu'mineen got to the point where he was so neglected that Zubair would look, as Amir al-Mu'mineen says, La ra'i liman la yutah. He has no opinion when no one's listening to him. Zubair said, I'm on the level of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And this is where he fell flat on his face. That he was involved in the rebellion against Amir al-Mu'mineen in Ma'arakat al-Jamal. And as we know, man harabakum mushrik. He left Iman and went to shirk for turning against the Imam of his time, him and his ilk and his adherents, the ones that stood by his side. So at this point, he lost the position that he would have had, the manzil that he would have had in paradise. But when we look at this Firdaus, أولئك هم الوارثون الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون. Firstly, let's look at what Firdaus is. The only other verse that it's mentioned in the Quran is in Surah Al-Kahf. It says, إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا. That here it's mentioned again. Firdaus, according to a narration عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. اللهم صل على محمد. He says, Al-Jannah mi'atu daraja. So it has 100 levels. Paradise has 100 levels. ما بين كل درجتين كما بين السماء والأرض. Between each level is like between the heavens and the earth. You imagine that distance. And then he says, Al-Firdaus a'laha daraja. The highest level of paradise is Al-Firdaus. So when we're speaking about these successful people, they are the elite. They are the apex. They are the epitome of the Muslims, these successful mu'mins. Then he says, within this, أعلاها درجة منها تفجر الأنهار الجنة الأربعة فإذا سألتم الله تعالى فاسألوه الفردوس. When you want to ask Allah Azza wa Jal for a position in paradise, ask for Al-Firdaus. Rasulullah says in this narration. Because what is there in paradise just in general? You want to think about this place to be in the highest level of paradise. The conditions are there. You know, when someone says to you, I want to know, if you want to know where you are in this world, as the narration says, and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, put yourself up against the book of God. Look at the book of God. What the criteria in the book of God is. We know whoever just misses out on the fire of hell enters paradise. من زحزح عن النار وادخل الجنة فقد فاز. You're victorious if you just get into paradise. But the highest level of this success, the highest victory, the greatest victory is Al-Firdaus. And this is what you need to strive for. If I make that my goal, I might just get into paradise. Or I might reach it depending on how much belief I have in Allah's mercy and how much effort that I put in. Firstly, if you look at our desires on this earth, just take a look, glance at paradise and the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. In this earth, we eat, we drink, we marry, we have power and ability, but all the things we have a limit. There's only so much you can do before you become sapped of your energy, before you become satiated. Whereas in paradise, our desires, we do not know what their limits are. But what we do know, yarhamukumullah, is that they are limitless. In this world, you pay for your desires. When you use any of the shahawat you have in this world, you need a recovery. if you eat, there's only so much that you can eat. You can sometimes see a sufra in front of you, a nice big banquet, and you go, oh, that's it, I'm going to carve through this. You only eat a certain amount and that's enough. Even people, the people that are going to get married on their wedding night, they think that's it. I'll be enjoying myself all night. And they zap before they know it. Before they know it, they look on what's on TV at about midnight to watch. You know? They're underperforming. Why? Because there is only so much you can give. Whereas when it comes to the hereafter, your abilities are limitless. We cannot say anyone is guaranteed paradise. You can have a fair idea, but you have to always keep two thoughts in your head. One, that we should not believe. One of the greatest sins is we should not have aman min makrillah. Never in your life think, I will go unpunished. And never in your life give up in God's mercy. But God's mercy is that touch above. And it's even proven throughout our lives. When you read the Quran, 113 of the surah begin with God's mercy. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So God reiterates and He underlines this, that I am merciful. And just one surah in the whole Quran begins with bara'atun min Allah. Just one out of the whole Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal always talks about mercy. And even when you read the supplications, the best supplication that we were granted, that we read on a weekly basis, is Dua Qumail. And it begins with what? It begins to talk about Allah's mercy that encompasses everything. It is above and beyond everything. So it has this Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, this prevalence over, it has this position over everything else. But you should always have this hope, the hope in God's mercy. Where should I think of God's punishment? See, sometimes when you're always told to think of death, you're not supposed to have this morbidity within you where you're always thinking of death and demise. You think of death and you think of judgment when you're about to commit a sin. There has to be that balance within. But let's just take a look at this paradise that they will inherit. And it's beyond your imagination. If anyone's seen or read the books or the movies that were based on the author J.R. Tolkien, they say this guy lived in a fantasy world. People used to visit his house. Inside his house, he used to actually live in Middle Earth. He was living in another planet altogether. He would actually have this imaginary world. And if you notice games people enjoy playing, a lot of the games that have a lot of success are all these simulation games. Like people living life in the computer where they buy different things and they're living someone else's life. People designing. If you look at amongst the children, one game that really flourished with children was Minecraft. Why? Because it involved what? It involved building and designing and a city and a town and a home the way they wanted to their specifications and onwards. That people have this want and this need. In paradise, it's less effort than this. In paradise, you design your life. You design where you live just by your thoughts. You know, when someone is scratching your back, 3/4 of the time you're instructing them to get to the point of where to scratch. Now go up, move to the left, a bit further down. In Jannah, it's not like this. The spot is hit immediately. Everything is done the way you like it. Everything is done to specification. Exactly the way you like it and how you feel without you having to describe it. It's something that you can't imagine at all. And the only barrier between you and this paradise is death. This is all that you have to wait for. This doorway from you to paradise. This does not mean that I should yearn for death. طبعا, when I ask Allah Azza wa Jal, I ask Allah to take me from this earth when He is pleased of me with my actions. Something that is most important about paradise and understanding what the hereafter is in this world, the best of this world is for you to get, for example, a mansion on the beach with a sports car, luxury car, to have your own private jet. You think of all these things you can get in this world. What is the alternative? The alternative, you could be homeless, you could have nothing except your legs to walk with, or you could be paralyzed. The alternative is not really that bad. The worst that you could have here is not the end of the world, if you understand. There's always that light at the end of the tunnel. People, you look at people that live in poverty, if you take a look when they go to these villages in Africa and India, you still see that they're happy. There's poverty, but they're happy. They live together, they work together, they're still happy. So the alternative is not really that bad. The problem why I have to think about the hereafter, because even when it comes to what I eat, in this world, you might have a nice roast dinner, or the alternative is you get breadcrumbs dipped in water. When it comes to marriage, you may get the perfect spouse, or you may get the wicked witch of the West. There's all these different alternatives, but however, you have an alternative. But the problem with the hereafter and the difference there is the alternative is what is scary. See, if you don't get paradise, there's no middle world. There's no world where you can say, all right, we just live on earth. The alternative to paradise is Nar Jahannam. And this is what really petrifies you. Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, says, كل نعيم دون الجنة محقور. كل نعيم دون الجنة محقور. Any blessing or any bounty that is given other than paradise, so no matter what I achieve, no matter what I am given, if I don't get paradise, it is nothing. It is absolutely nothing. It is valueless. It's null. And this is why I have to strive for paradise. If you're not enticed by what is in paradise, the bigger encouragement. If you take a look, for example, now let's give you an example. If you found out now, the Imam came and said to the people, okay, he said, you will not be punished if you don't pray. But if you do pray, your prayers will receive 100 times reward. You will find a humongous percentage of people will stop praying. I'm not going to get punished there, but I'm unsalli. The biggest driving force for people to do things is that. If Allah Azza wa Jal, I remember one of the people in the Ja'fari, one of the men, when I was younger, I heard him talking, back when we used to be in the underground in Rockdale. He said, Ya Ammi, he said, if Nar Jahannam's like earth, he said, I'm not going to do anything. It's not that bad. In other words, if the punishment's not that bad, I won't do anything. If you find the biggest driving force for people is what? The punishment. That's the biggest driving force that makes people do good deeds. The accountability, the punishment. The reward is only a small percentage. Only a small percentage of people rush towards the reward. And only the elite, as-sabiqun, the elite of people are the ones, and generally they are the ma'sumin, and the ones that are nearest most to them are the ones that worship Allah Azza wa Jal because He is worthy of worship. That they worship just to gain proximity to Allah. Other than this, you will find no blessing or bounty given to you is worth anything without paradise. Al-Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Qadim salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says, Inna abdanakum laysa laha thamanun illa al-jannah, fala tabi'uha bighayriha. That your body, what you have, you should give it a value. What's the value of your life, of what you own? He said the price for who you are or what you have is paradise. Do not trade it for anything else. You know, when you anything less, when you see someone sell their car or sell something, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When someone trades what they have, their soul, their body, or sorry, an example, someone sells their car for a really cheap price. You tell them, oh, you got ripped, you sold it for too cheap of a price. Your body's value, if you want to evaluate it, its price should only be paradise. Do not sell it for anything else. This is why this morning when we commemorated these martyrs that gave everything they had. They gave everything they had, that even one of the ulama, when he describes the final portion that you read in the sujood of Ziyarat Ashura, he says, الَّذِينَ بَذَلُوا مُهَجَهُمْ دُونَ الْحُسَيْنِ alayhi salam. He describes what does this mean. He says, when you kill a sheep, and the blood that comes from the sheep, there's always blood that remains within the blood pump, within the heart. This blood that remains in the blood pump does not leave the sheep when you kill it. It remains there. That actually when you remove the heart, the blood is still there. He said, this blood that cannot be given, that remains within the person, he said, Ashab al-Hussein gave that blood. Whatever they could, they gave for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. That they sold everything they have. There was nothing they left. What they could give, they gave. And you always hear the narrations that with these people, besides the Quran saying that these people traded what they had, their wealth and their souls, everything, for this path. You remember when you hear one of the companions say that if I was killed and then I was brought back, then I was burnt, then I was brought back, and this was to happen to me over and over again, I would not leave you. And then another companion would say, oh Abu Abdullah, if I knew that this world was the eternal world, that the dunya was the eternal world, and death was the demise, it was the end of life, there's no more life. If this is what I knew, he said, I would rather die and not exist than to live on this earth without you being here. So I would choose non-existence than to exist without you. These people had this form of sacrifice right to the very end. These people put themselves in a position to achieve this Firdaus. And this is one thing that makes you, entices you, and is a performance enhancer for you to achieve paradise. Is the reward, and the alternative should be one that encourages us. So if you look at Jahannam, which I find is the greatest motivation, if all these nights we discussed to take you to paradise, the greatest motivation for people is this. They need to understand that just as the manifestation of Allah's mercy is paradise, the fire of hell is the manifestation of Allah Azza wa Jal's wrath. Allah Azza wa Jal says, يَوْمَ نَقُولُ لِجَهَنَّمْ هَلْ امْتَلَأْتِ وَتَقُولُ هَلْ مِن مَزِيدٍ. If you look at the fire of hell, when it speaks about it in the Quran, it is a living entity. It is like some kind of a beast. It is a living entity. When Allah Azza wa Jal mentions this, it is as if it has been created for this purpose. And Allah Azza wa Jal's intention in creating this fire is for punishment. And making it for punishment and nothing else. Now to the point that it will be filled. Absolutely filled. And that I have already got a position there. This is what I need to understand. This is why it says, وَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ. That for me to abstain from achieving this position and let someone else inherit what is there. Now the believer, like I said, has exchanged everything he has given for paradise. If we look at paradise, and one of the many things that is within paradise, Allah Azza wa Jal calls paradise in the Quran Dar as-Salam. It is the home or the abode of peace. There's no worries there. There's no grief there. There's no stress there. There's no fear there. See, sometimes you look at people, they stress and they regret. I wish I had a better education. I wish I took school more seriously. I wish I had a better job. I wish I invested properly. You know, sometimes people say, oh, only if I bought a property this many years ago. Only if I did this. Only if I did that. Once you enter paradise, see, the day of judgment is the day of hasra. This extreme regret. But once you enter paradise, just now, you know how you don't remember what took place in Alam al-Dhar, when Allah Azza wa Jal created us. This is how it will be when you enter paradise. You won't remember what took place on earth. Allah Azza wa Jal will make you forget all these things that bring about this stress and anguish. There are so many fears in this earth. When I look at all the benefits of paradise, one benefit for me is above all. One benefit for me I find the best, and this is the one that stresses people out the most. If you put in Google, you know how Google sometimes answers when you're writing the first words, it gives you the sentence of what is it you're looking for. If you write what happens, do you know automatically the first suggestion you're given is what? What happens? What'd you say? That's it. That's the first one you're given. What happens when you die? This is the most stressful thing within everybody. Everybody's life is they worry about the inevitable. The thing that is certain in life, and that is death. And when I look at this inevitable thing that I cannot avoid, the biggest blessing is in paradise is the remainder of this verse. الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ is the concept of khuld. That you are there for eternity. That when you enter paradise, when Jibreel comes in to give you his greetings, they say the inhabitant, inshaAllah yaj'alkum jami'an min ashab al-yamin, min ahl al-jannah. That the person stands up and Jibreel says, sit down. You know, when someone of respect enters a room, people stand for him. So Jibreel walks in, you're about to stand, he says, sit, there's no more of this. You're here to enjoy yourself. There's no more praying, there's no more fasting, there's nothing. It's not like the picture, you know that picture that everyone used to have back in the old days, that carpet you have on the wall, with a guy sitting next to a river and they say it's the guy who's in paradise and he's reading the Quran. You're not in paradise to worship. That's it, it's over. The test is over. You're there to enjoy yourself. And everyone used to think that's what Jannah is. When I was a child, that's what I thought. I thought Jannah was just a mosque and everyone's doing Jama'ah all day and reading Quran. This is the concept we're given. That's because our desires hadn't developed. You know, we didn't get people to repeat وَمِنَ الْحُورِ الْعَيْنِ فَزَوَّجْنَا. Back then we weren't thinking of these. All these were out of the picture. Everything changes a thought. The khuld in Jannah, Jibreel gives you a letter. And this letter is from Allah Azza wa Jal. It says, مِنَ الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ إِلَى الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ. From the eternal God, from the one that has eternity. طبعا Allah Azza wa Jal's eternity is different to us. However, now you will live and you will never die. That concept that I will never die. I will never die. This is the biggest blessing. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal continuously reminds you of this. أولئك أصحاب الجنة هم فيها خالدون. He reminds you of khuld. He reminds you of this eternity in this abode. This is what you need to think about. Imagine a place where you don't have to listen to Alan Jones anymore. You don't have to see any member of One Nation. You don't have to have the subject that I've been told not to speak about being rubbed in your face wherever you work. You don't have to have anything of these in your face anymore. I don't have to see it anymore. You know, I can walk around and I do not see all these abnormalities that have become normal in this world. I don't have to hear all these things that irritate me. I don't have to see anyone slander my Prophet and harm me in any way. And this is the beauty of paradise. And this is why you are here. You are looking at people that exchanged everything in their life. Everything they had, and in exchange Allah Azza wa Jal, upon this transaction with these people, He purchased from them their souls, He purchased from them their property, and in exchange for this transaction, He gave them eternity in paradise. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal on this night, because a lot of you honestly that turn up for the 11th and 12th, you know, you're the people that do that extra. You know, the ones that get up and pray and jump off the Saliyah and get going. And then there's the ones that do Tasbihat al-Zahra. And then there's the ones that do a Taqib. And then there's the one that do the Nafila. And then there are the ones that do just that little extra. The ones that come on the 11th. I'm not saying the ones that anyone turns up to one majlis is min ashab al-Jannah, inshallah, is good. But the ones that do that extra to get that higher level. You've been blessed to be attending majalis after the 10th day, which in Lebanon we call the Falli, because everyone takes off, you know, on that day. You know, may Allah Azza wa Jal answer your prayers on these nights. May Allah not only answer your prayers, anyone that has a need tonight, may Allah fulfill that need. And your biggest need should always be to ask for the relief. Ask for the Hud Imam Hujjah. This is the most important thing we require, I swear to you. We are lost as a nation. Everyone around always quarrels with one another. Forget about other than Madhab Ahl al-Bayt. Just within Madhab Ahl al-Bayt, it's a clubbing contest. Everyone clubs each other on the head. Everyone's against each other. This is why we need the dhuhur of the Imam. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan Al-Mehdi ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.